question. Do you think this is more difficult for men? Fear of closeness or fear of intimacy than it is for women?
Do I think or do I know?
Thank you for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, I want to welcome back Dr. Gary Salyer, the author of Safe to Love Again. Thank you for being here again, Gary.
Oh, I love being here. Thank you so much, Silka.
Well, we have great conversations, and you really help us do the deep dives into these relationship issues that we face and try to get through, especially at this time in life. And the one I want to talk about today is fear of intimacy.
Mhm.
And it's a mouthful, fear of intimacy. What is that? I think this is really important for our demographic because of what I see in the comments, what the questions, the emails I get. There, so many people are done with love, yet they're watching the channel, they're watching videos on finding love again. But no, we're done. I'm not going there again. I'm not going to get hurt again. And I thought I really would like to talk about that, the underlying issues of what is fear of intimacy and what does it do to you?
So let's understand intimacy. Intimacy, and we can always look at Saint Brene, is about allowing yourself to be fully known.
Mhm.
Now, we don't do that to everyone, nor should we, right? As I put it in the book, there's a right to create your own experience. And part of that template is, did I get a full right to be good and bad, strong and weak? If you were never allowed to have a weak side, whether it was in your family or let's say in culture where, people born like me are told we can't be weak, we have to be strong. So can we really expect to tell our spouse, I felt really scared and risk that? Especially if we think she married us because we're her rock. What happens the day we feel more like the sand and
Yep.
not rock?
That's a big
And now
discussion.
we've got a marriage that doesn't work, right?
Yep.
I had to learn the hard way in my 20s that being too honest was a bad deal. I had a psych professor. I did a big personality inventory. He told me when I was 23, he said, "You're honest to a fault. You're going to learn the hard way in life. You cannot be as honest." And in my late 20s, a few things at work didn't go so well because I was always honest, and I realized that's what he meant.
Mm.
So, and on the other hand, you don't want to bring that home to your primary relationships.
Mhm.
You know, you're the ones who really love you need to know you, and you need to feel known. So this little one this is a little different. Being intimacy is something that we have to have a little wisdom with as well.
It's interesting that if I'm hearing you say this right, that fear of intimacy, I mean, there's reasons for it because you don't want to get emotionally hurt again. And
Yes.
for good reasons, because it really, really hurts when you do. Of course, if you don't let intimacy in, you can't experience the highs either. So it's like, what is your reasoning for not wanting to get back in? Are you is there something deep down, or you're just done? I mean, it's okay if you don't want to ever have a relationship again, that's okay, but what's the reason for it? But I'm almost hearing you say that being fully there, or fully sharing yourself even in a close relationship, you may have to rethink. You don't want to be too honest, or am I not understanding that right?
I once worked with a love coach
Mm-hmm.
who complained at first that her husband was not sharing enough feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But then after 5 or 6 sessions, she goes, "I know it is wrong, but I don't want to hear about his weakness. I want him to show up as a man."
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you really think it's safe? I mean, now this is it. She knows it, but this
Right.
is evolutionary. I want a man, and yet I want someone to be available. I think that the fear of intimacy a lot of times is because we haven't chosen the right people or we haven't felt safe, but we haven't properly titrated it as we go deeper. Too many people I've seen, especially those with anxious, man, they just go zoom right to the bottom and they share too much too fast. And then there's the avoidance that you can't get anything out. And they use their lack of disclosure so they can keep one up over you who just gave up the ways they can know how to judge you or hit your buttons. And it's a dance of intimacy. It is a dance. And you have to gradually discuss how it feels in the relationship. I'm not going to go full-fledged Brene Brown and say, just share with everybody, and probably she wouldn't either. You have to have an inner compass when you can rightly judge when someone is giving you that grace and understanding and kindness. That's when intimacy feels good, when there's grace, understanding, and kindness. Now, if we're afraid to share, that trust has been broken in the past, or we learn poor models of what a good relationship is, and maybe we wanted a connection so bad that we tried to make something before it was ready. It's how do we make it trustworthy, and is this person trustworthy? And you titrate it. I'm not going to just be honest with you. I have some people that know me deeply, and I invite new friends into my life all the time, right? If I met somebody and we're a couple of months into it and I really think they're cool, I would share less than maybe some of what I've shared with you when we're off mic, right? I've learned to trust you, right? So, and because I only share at a level that I've allowed trust to truly form, and I check my guts on it, and I allow my attachment system to get enough evidence and enough track record that I trust, because trust is a track record, then my system is more willing to share. So some of it is an internal thing. Are we being nice to ourselves and protective of our own selves by making sure it's safe? Or are we constantly building walls and hiding behind them? And that's not cool either. This is a little more complicated.
It is a little more complicated. And what I love about what you just said, because very few people do in your position, is that we can't be fully vulnerable. That can work against us, because like you said, we have to titrate, especially men. And that's like a follow-up question. Do you think this is more difficult for men? Fear of closeness or fear of intimacy than it is for women?
Do I think, or do I know? Okay, men are, look at the way the classic studies. When women bond, they do face-to-face. Two men that are good friends, it's side by side. They're doing a task together. That is by nature a way of toning down connection. I can still remember about 35 years ago, I have a really good friend. She's a woman. And I had two best friends from high school and one from third grade, right? And we went out to lunch, and I'm used to, being, with guys. And she leans forward and she goes, "How's your relationship?" And I'm thinking, what sort of question is that? Well, that's such a question, right? And I'm going, well, how much do I want her to know?
None
of
your business.
Business, right? And that's because men ubiquitously, especially in patriarchal culture, we are given a right to feel empowered, but not so much to connect. The opposite is typically true for women. They get right to connect, but not to feel empowered. We are told we can't have our feelings. And by the way, it's getting way better with younger men. It really is. They're getting more in tune with their feelings and stuff. And interestingly, sometimes women don't want that. So
I was just going to say, is that a good thing? We hear this all the time when I do research on this topic, like what women want and the equality of the sexes and all that. It's a little bit worrisome, quite frankly. We are different, and I think even young. I'm stating this strictly. This is my opinion, but what I've observed, what I've heard, women do want a strong man. I mean, I don't see that changing. I think, as you said, I think that's ingrained. It's indigenous.
It is, and this is coming to consciousness.
Yeah.
If women want us to share power,
Mm-hmm.
they've got to allow us to stop to giving this the trip. We only have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
If you want vulnerability, I have my weaknesses. I have my hurt feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I can turn them off in a minute, like any good man does, because we've got a left brain that doesn't have feelings. If it mandates that. Now, those feelings, I mean, you can still have strength and your feelings as a man. I don't think women get it because women have feelings all day long. Mm-hmm. It's the only channel broadcasting. Whereas because of evolution, mm-hmm. I can tell you that when push comes to shove, I can immediately turn off my feelings. And then I tell myself it's fine. So I think this is part of the cultural dialogue that we're going to have to do. If we're going to raise consciousness, then women are going to have to up their game, because some of evolution, that whole power up thing that men learned in evolution, well, this is the other thing on the other side. We've got to be able to discuss what secure love is, because we're asking for, what we're really looking for is conscious love, that we're not running old trips from evolution on each other. This is going to be intimacy. If we're talking real intimacy here, this is part of the dialogue. I've had 2 love coaches that mm-hmm. had that same feeling. I want him to show up strong. I want him to be my man. I want him to be my rock. Mm-hmm. And I want him to be vulnerable, except when he does, it sets off these old...
It turns me off.
Right? Because 25,000 years ago, this guy, it's too much into his feelings, probably doesn't bring home the bacon because it's mm-hmm. sacred, or the aardvark or whatever they're bringing home, right? Mm-hmm. We've got to come to consciousness, because the next frontier is really about how do we help each other all really feel loved and known. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I find interesting in the way our conversation has gone today, Gary, is totally different than what I saw at first heading, and a hell of a lot more interesting, because essentially, and I feel like that, and you actually stated it or voiced it, is that fear of intimacy is, it might be a good thing, or fear of getting too close. I mean, I'm being somewhat facetious here, obviously, but there is a protectiveness in that's not all bad.
No. In fact, in attachment, it's called situational avoidance.
Okay. I don't think I've heard that.
If you're talking to a narcissist that's going to twist everything and you're building up some walls and not being, that would be called, that's a secure move in that instance. It is perfectly normal to mm-hmm. cherish and protect yourself with walls. Walls are not bad until they're not. Mm-hmm. Okay. We have walls because we need them sometimes. Mm-hmm. And there are some people I would never share with. Walls are not bad. It's when you're using them in the wrong situation. But situational avoidance or situational anxiousness, those are the proper responses of a secure brain that mm-hmm. knows I have a right to feel welcome, worthy, cherished, and protected and empowered. And if they use this against me, or they betray me with that, and they have a track record, or you don't have enough track record, then some part of you is using 4 feelings to navigate it. If someone's going to violate those 4 feelings by getting to know you and then using you or manipulating you or judging you, and because they're not secure, by all means, we should not be intimate. You don't want to stay in a relationship and say, well, I'm supposed to be Brene Brown vulnerable when you're with somebody that's not worthy of that.
Well, we're starting to come to the end, and is there an answer or any sort of well, you have to be a quick answer, so it probably isn't. But people who are listening, and this fear of intimacy has come up before, or they're there, I'm done with love, but they're really not. Is there any kind of guidance that you can give in terms of understanding whether or not where they are right now is healthy for them or not?
We are born for connection. There's one line in my book that, in my opinion, is my favorite line. Whatever happened that said, I'm never going to get hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's a specific person. If we allow them to take away our natural birthright for love and connection, we are giving them a whole lot of power they don't deserve. And my favorite line in the book is, no one individual or incident should ever have that sort of power over all of our incarnation.
I love that. What a great way to reframe it.
Yeah.
That if it's this one particular incident was a horrible divorce, you're giving this person who hurt you so badly the power to never be, for you not to be happy again, or well, in a relationship again, or let yourself go again. What a great way to reframe that.
It is. And who gave them that power?
Yeah, you did.
Exactly.
You did.
We no human being, no event should ever be given the power to control what your natural needs are. That's too big of a giveaway. You deserve love. Nobody should be given that power.
Yeah, I love it. Gary, thank you so much for your time on this. This was a great conversation. Like I said, it went different than what I first thought, because we can talk about, signs and symptoms and this and that, but there's much, you always go deep, and that's why I have you here. And just there's a whole other spin to it that I just really love today.
And Silky, you know why we had a really great, soulful, deep conversation that went where I shared a little more than normal? Because you and I have what, 15 of these together, and we've had multiple conversations.
Easily, yeah.
Trust. I know I can trust you with a little more vulnerability in who Gary is.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation, why it went differently, why it went deeper, and it was more special, is all because we have enough of a track record that we can trust each other with who we really are. This very show is an example of how intimacy develops. If we hadn't had 15 shows, I probably don't do as much and say as much as I do. But because I trust you, because I know you're a good soul, then magic happens.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I'm not going to throw you under the bus. Thank you, Gary. Really, this was wonderful. I had such a good time. I will link, of course, to your book, to all of your information, if somebody wants to get in touch with you directly. I know you always have new courses and books coming out. I'll make sure I keep up on that in our show notes as well. And I look so forward to having you back again soon on Second Act TV.